Hi, everybody. So, originally, I had typed up a long blog post about what I'm going to talk about. Unfortunately, with my poor technology skills, I lost that entire blog post. So, I figured I would jump on here and make a video. I'll try not to bore you to death, but maybe you can play it in the background while you guys are doing some project or something. But I wanted to talk a little bit about why I switched from being like a seasonal athlete or seasonal healthy person, and I kind of transitioned into more of like the lifestyle and more of the consistent nutrition and training. That never really was the case for a lot of my training cycles, and I was totally happy with that for a really long time. And I've just gotten to the point where I've realized that my training and especially my nutrition has almost forced its way into my life consistently, which I think a lot of people generally think of like training healthy and eating healthy, and these healthy habits are a choice and can come and go depending on like if you're going on a cruise and you need a certain physique, or if you're wanting to, you know, get slim for the summer or whatever the case may be. And I've just kind of gotten away from that mentality of thinking for several reasons, but I'll kind of tell you a little bit about my history, and that can kind of give you an insight as to why I've gone down this path. Because I've been an athlete for a very, very long time. So I started training when I was maybe 8 or 9 with my dad. He got me into competitive endurance sports. So at that time, that was the first time I would say I was introduced to personal training and having a coach, having kind of a really dedicated meal plan and dietary needs to support the endurance side of the sport. So I really kind of started getting into the love of it back then. And obviously, as my life has progressed on, there's always ebbs and flows as, you know, being an athlete, especially a youth athlete. You reach a time where you wonder, is this really what I want to do? Training all the time, working so hard, focusing on my dietary needs. And so there's a little bit of an ebb and flow that happens there. But I would say generally from, probably around 17 or 18 on, I've been pretty dedicated to, training and nutrition. Although, for me personally, I like to talk about the times when I wasn't really dedicated, because I think that is more natural for people. Especially for me, it's very hard to just start with something and then just say, this is what I do for the rest of my life, and I don't change or vary. So I would say there were several years where I would call myself seasonal, and I would be extremely dedicated, like all or nothing mentality during a certain section of the year. And this is great. I mean, it really was wonderful at the time, because I got leaps and bounds ahead of people who would start something and then peter off. So I really, for a long time, coached and delivered kind of the mentality of like, work as hard as you can for a short period of time so that you can get somewhere. Versus a lot of people, the idea of consistency and this low level consistency is a bit harder. But I would say I've quite drastically transitioned. And a big part of that is, kind of my history. I guess I should start where when I was about 17 or 18, I started to really recognize that I had a lot of GI discomfort. And so I thought, well, it must be, my nutrition or something I'm eating. So at that time, I really deep dove into my nutrition, started to educate myself, learn a lot, talk to nutritionists, talk to doctors, all of this stuff. And Around that time, I had struggled so badly with my GI discomfort and kind of intermittently, like in and out of the bathroom, pretty chronically, actually, at times. Actually, I had lost a job because of it, because I really couldn't monitor like what my stomach was going to do, and so I would spend a lot of time in the bathroom. So that was, a really hard time for me, because I thought, wow, this is starting to take over my life. So around that same time, I got a lot of nutrition type health testing done. I got all of my foods tested for allergies, or I guess the panels were tested against my blood work to see if I was really hyperallergic to anything. And come to find out, I was. So that was a fantastic stepping stone into a lot of the stuff that I had gotten into. So I was allergic to a lot of the foods that I was consuming, very allergic actually, to the point where when I took those foods out of my diet, I started to feel and notice a really significant difference, although it never fully improved 100% or went away. So I really continued to try to get more involved in this nutrition stuff. And then at that point, I thought, okay, I've got it kind of manageable, but it wasn't by any means normal. Like the normal GI tract that a normal person would experience. So if you don't know what normal is, we should definitely talk about that. And if you don't feel normal, we should for sure talk about that too. But around that time, I was testing for structural firefighting, and I was training very hard at the time. That was kind of like a big season for me to train and be dedicated to, health and wellness and putting on muscle mass and ability and having the strength. Although during that time, I was in tremendous amounts of back pain, chronic. And so, of course, kind of like the nutrition, I was like, okay, I'm going to educate myself and learn about this and figure out what's going on. So that's kind of what took me into my training mentality and really got into form focus and really tried to understand movement and the way that the body moves and complex ranges of motion. But that did not solve any of my problems. So at that time, I was really, really confused because I had gotten my certificates for all sorts of different types of training. I knew my form was dialed in. I knew exactly what caused pain, what didn't cause pain for most people. And so at that point, I really started to question why I was having such severe back pain. So shortly after that, long story short, I found out I needed a pretty severe, kind of more rare surgery. There was a very large bone growth off of my spine, which caused a lot of my back pain discomfort. And in conjunction with that, that bone was actually compressing my GI nerve bundle. So that was the root cause of why I had suffered and struggled so much with understanding my digestive system and what was actually happening. So I really count it as a blessing that I recognized what was going on and was able to fix that, because then after that, I really didn't struggle as much with any of my issues anymore. So after my back surgery, I kind of went on as an athlete, and I was extremely determined to get back to a really capable state after back surgery. So I would say during that time, I was relatively consistent with my nutrition and my training, which I was training at a higher level then, so that I could really make sure that I got back to a very athletic capability after my back surgery. So that time was great as far as my consistency goes. And then shortly after that, I had kind of run into some other issues. And the reason I'm talking about all this stuff is to kind of show you that not every athletic person is just dialed in and consistent, and B, there are reasons why consistency is extremely important and beneficial for longevity, health and wellness, cardiovascular health, all of this stuff. So after I had my back surgery, got back to a high level of performing, I actually had a major shoulder dislocation. And so along with that injury, all of these injuries have been outside of the gym, so luckily I've never really injured myself directly in the gym from training, which is, for the most part, injury is relatively easy to stay away from, especially if you prime your body. So a lot of these injuries have happened because of the times when I haven't been consistent. So times when I have chosen to maybe not exercise and train my body as much, and my body is then at a weaker state and it's not really supporting my joints, not really supporting kind of the activities that I'm doing outside of the gym. So that's a big reason why I preach about consistency now, is because with this major shoulder dislocation, if I had been consistently, even at a low level, training and supporting my body, I really feel that I probably would not have had the amount of damage in my shoulder, and also it may not have had a full dislocation at all. So that's a tough thing to say because you don't really know, given the nature of the injury. So it's just, I definitely understand that I think I could have preserved my body a little bit more if I had done kind of what I was supposed to be doing. Then after that, being back in the gym to recover and rehab my shoulder, it really was the only thing that was keeping that shoulder away from surgery. So training consistently, doing what I was supposed to be doing to support that joint, and really kind of focusing on that as a mentality kept me from needing surgery on this joint. I was able to gain full range of motion back, strength back, all of this, full capability back. So after that, another period of time when I was not training consistently or training really well, actually during this time, I think I stopped training altogether. I was basically just kind of using my body for a lot of sport and activity outside of the gym, and I wasn't really properly engaging my body to create strength and development and stability. So after that shoulder dislocation, I also had an accident where I fully blew out my ACL in my right knee. And with that complete blowout, again, that injury, I'm not for sure, but I bet that injury could have definitely not had a full ACL tear if I had been, more consistently under a load, more consistently training my joints in different ranges of motion, definitely working on my flexibility, my stretching, my mobility. I really think I could have stayed away from that major of an injury. So again, the times when I have not been training and not been doing something to support my body have been the times that have really mattered, when my body's broken down and then ends up getting really hurt. So fortunately, not everybody is as rough on their body as I am, but you don't know what's going to come, and you don't know what life will throw at you. So I think it is really important to just recognize that you might get put in a situation at some point that there's a possibility of injury. So after I had rehabilitated that knee, I got a surgery on that knee because I definitely needed one for that joint. After I had gone through that whole surgery and the process of it all, I thought, generally I was in the clear. Given the nature of that surgery, I was being more consistent in the gym, being more consistent relatively with my nutrition, but that wasn't really my focus at the time. It was mainly just getting my knee back to being able to use it like a normal knee. And so I would say I had a period of time where I was being good or being consistent. And then after that, there was a period of time where I took a break from training and nutrition, and I kind of went off the nutritional deep end, I guess you could say, where I was under really, really high levels of stress. I was working on a lot of projects at the time. I really took a step back from my nutrition, and I kind of like ate a lot of processed things. I ate a lot of, more processed dairy products. I really kind of consumed whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. And, that is all fine because I thought, okay, I can get away with this. I don't really care about like what exactly my aesthetic is looking like. I definitely didn't take it to the point where I, put on a ton of weight and that sort of thing. But I certainly was affecting my body in a way consistently enough to where my body was really starting to have negative effect from that. So I have some photos I can share with you guys of like my skin texture. I had just incredibly bad acne and breakouts to where I could not manage that. It would not go away. I even got to the point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I went immediately back to my healthy eating, my supplementation, all that stuff. But I think there was really, truly such a buildup in my system and so much damage to my GI system and my gut microbiome to where it took 3 or 4 times as long to recover and heal from this than it did even just going down this path. So I think I really kind of took that time and almost destroyed a lot of things in my system that were helping, me stay healthy and, obviously having the correct organ function and just kind of my systems working as they should. So lots of stress, poor eating habits tied in with not a lot of movement or training. It really wreaked havoc. And although it was something that was almost at first unrecognizable, it got to the point where it was a major problem. And I spent thousands of dollars to try to heal my skin, recover, look healthier. My nails were suffering. My hair would not grow. It was not healthy. There was tons of issues there. My cardiovascular health was super poor, so I wasn't getting enough oxygen to my brain, all of this stuff. So I say all of that because even though you may not feel the repercussions of, some of these bad habits, your body is still being affected and it is still taking that load on. And depending on the, severity or duration of this, it really can cause a lot of problems on your system, whether you think so or not. And a lot of people generally live with higher levels of inflammation because of some of the foods that they're consuming, because maybe hormonal issues, issues with cortisol, stress, adrenal function, eating a lot of processed foods, consuming, or I should say over-consuming alcohols. The list goes on and on why people can generally live in a chronically inflamed state. So I would say for me, a big goal is to live with as little inflammation as I can. And that for me, I'm really tied in with that. So I use that as a baseline. If I'm waking up every day, I'm super inflamed, my joints hurt, I feel puffy, my gut is puffy, I, am really retaining a lot of water, my face is puffy, those are all indicators for me that I'm starting to not treat my body in a very good manner. So after all of this recovery with the skin and my overall organ function, I was finally able to get back to more of a normal state, although I think I was still in a place where my body was recovering. My immune system and my functionality of just my body's natural defenses, I think, were really dropped at this time. And so shortly after that, this will be kind of my last story, but shortly after that, I had gone to the grocery and I had picked up cherries. And at this point, with all of my food panels that I've, tested against, I never was allergic to cherries, and I consumed them. Everything had been fine. So I started to eat the cherries, and I hadn't really had anything else that day. So I definitely knew that it was a direct correlation with that consumption. So when I was eating the cherries, I immediately noticed, oh, I think I'm getting quite an allergic reaction. My throat started to close, my eyes started to swell shut, and I was coughing and wheezing. It was really bad. And come to find out, after I visited the emergency room and had this enormous medical bill, it was kind of determined that likely what had happened was a reaction to maybe a pesticide that was on the cherries. And so at this point, I just really started to evaluate, what types of food am I consuming? Where is the food coming from? Is it organic or is it not? Am I properly washing my produce? If I had homegrown produce, I would know exactly what's on it. That aspect would have been really controlled. So a lot of these things that have come up that I've worked through has really changed my mindset into being more consistency driven, because I just can't get away with any more injuries. If I were to re-injure my shoulder or blow out my knee again, or whatever the case may be, it would be a terrible path to go down. So it's something where if I'm not consistently in the gym, I'm painful. A lot of my back surgery, my knee surgery, shoulder injury, joints in general are really painful for me if I'm not using my body, mobilizing my body, doing all of these things that we've been talking about. And I know that I have had times where I've just been in chronic pain. And a lot of it is just because I've gotten lazy or chosen to skip workouts or skip mobility or not have movement in my life. And that chronic pain can really affect everything. And it can really start to become a norm. And that level of living can become a norm. And so I just encourage you to kind of start to think about things a little bit differently. I'm not here to force anything onto anybody, but I definitely think that it's something that should just kind of sit in the back of your mind. And with my nutrition, that's really what's led me down this path of really evaluating what types of food I'm eating, why I'm eating those foods, and not only that, but how processed the foods are. What does processed even mean? What types of ingredients are in less processed foods, and how all of this is actually affecting my body, my sleep, my hormonal regulation, my cognitive function. So really, truly, you can dive into such great depths to try to understand how the outside world is affecting your inside world. But really, it's really just beginning to think about what works best for you to start getting you on a path that you actually feel your body is supported versus you know, look or feel unhealthy, you're, you know, struggling with factors that probably could get fixed or improved from, you know, general health and general nutrition, general training, um, and really evaluating even to your home life, your, you know, mental states, your fatigue levels, you know, your amounts of energy throughout the day, and just really thinking about what types of changes are actually tangible for you in your lifestyle so that you can start to support your body better. You don't have to go crazy down these wild paths, but just really determining what types of training looks consistent for you and what types of nutrition looks consistent for you. Because definitely, like, movement and nutrition are kind of things that should just be base level in your life, and figuring out what types of training and nutrition you can support on longer timelines. So if there's anything that you guys want to talk about, or, you know, questions, comments, concerns, I love to help people individualize kind of what they want their habits to look like for them, not you guys fitting into a box and then trying to support that over a long period of time, because I know that that is usually kind of a short-term plan. So definitely reach out to me. I know that this was a bit long of a tangent that I'm going down, but I do feel that, you know, for me, I started out in a mentality where I was completely happy with, you know, times where I was scooting by, and then other times where I was 100% dialed in to what I thought was healthy. You know, and my mentality has changed quite a lot. My training style, you know, all of this stuff has changed just so that I could support my life more versus my life supporting my training. But anyways, thanks everybody for listening. And if you have any questions or anything, or if you feel maybe I missed something, I am glad to talk about whatever we need to talk about. And then later on this week, I will be answering some nutritional questions. So feel free to chime in on any of that, or send me a message and I can answer some specific questions for you. So, all right, you guys, thanks. I'll see you soon.